Good afternoon, everyone. This is Chris White at the California Fuel Cell Partnership, and welcome to our last station update webinar of 2016. Thank you all for joining us. Just a matter of housekeeping is that everybody on the call is on mute. If you have a question, you're welcome to ask at any time by typing your comments into the chat box or into the questions, and we will answer some of those as we go through the webinar today. This webinar is being recorded. The recording and the presentation will be posted online at the conclusion. Today our speakers are Joe Gagliano and Ben Xiong, who are going to talk about the update of stations and a little bit more about some of the online tools that you all can use. So with that, we will turn it on over to Joe.
Thank you very much, Chris. Welcome, everybody. I just wanted to give you an update on the status of the hydrogen station refueling network in California. We've made a lot of progress this year, both on the station side and the vehicle side, which we'll see in a minute. So on this slide, you can see that right now the status of the network is we've got 25 open retail hydrogen stations throughout the state now. We've got that's about half of the stations that have been funded through the Energy Commission. So we're making some very good progress there. As you can see, we've got a number of stations that are coming online, which I'll talk about in a minute. So again, with the estimate of, this year we've got 25 stations. We may have one more station that may open up before the end of the year. Probably it will open up in the beginning of 2017. So by the end of next year, we're expecting somewhere around 49 retail stations to be open throughout the state. On the vehicle side, we've actually made a lot of progress this year, and it's mainly through sales of Toyota Mirai vehicles. So if we started off the year with 100 new vehicle sales, but we had some fuel cell vehicles on the road already. So we had about 300 registered vehicles on the roadways earlier this year. And now through the end of November, we now have over 1,000 vehicles on the road in California. And you can see on the bottom of the slide here, we're talking, estimates are based on OEM surveys that the Air Resources Board has been conducting, that in 2019, right now we expect about 13,000 vehicles to be on the road. In 2022, we're looking at an estimate of about 43,000. Those surveys are updated every year, and those are really predicated on having a certain number of stations that are open and retail to the public. So you'll see those numbers change probably in the middle of next year. These are the stations that have opened since the last update that we gave you, I believe in August. We've had 5 retail stations open in Playa del Rey near LAX Airport, Woodland Hills in the LA area, Hollywood, which is a few miles from downtown LA. The Anaheim station has also opened. That's an Air Liquide station. And also Del Mar station has opened. That's in the San Diego area. And with the opening of the Del Mar station, we now have coverage throughout pretty much most of California, from San Diego and the LA metro area, the Central Valley, the San Francisco Bay Area, Sacramento, and up on through Lake Tahoe, Truckee region. Our forecast for the next retail stations that will be coming online to full retail, including, we've got 10 stations here that are next up on the list. That includes the Riverside Station, which that's the station that it's working through a couple of technical issues right now, but it may open, depending on how things go, it may open before the end of the year. Most likely, like I said earlier, that it would open in the early January timeframe. Behind that is the Ontario station as well, Woodside in Northern California, the San Ramon station up in Northern California as well, Cal State LA, South Pasadena and Fremont, as well as Thousand Oaks and Lawndale and Torrance. Lawndale is a new station. That one's under construction right now, and that is close to the Torrance station. So those two are tied closely together because the Torrance station is currently scheduled for an upgrade, and we want to make sure that the Lawndale station is open retail to handle customers who are currently using the Torrance station. And just a reminder, we do have a solicitation that the staff of the Energy Commission, they're reviewing proposals that they received this past August. Our understanding is that there was a really overwhelming response to the solicitation. So the CEC is being careful to take time to review all the proposals, and they actually updated their anticipated notice of proposed awards schedule, and we'll probably be hearing in first quarter of 2017 as to the results of those awards. And with that, I would like to hand it over to Ben Zong, who will talk about our station map and also our soft system as well. So I'll hand it over to Ben, and you can talk about that and provide an update on those two items.
Thanks, Joe. Again, this is Ben Zong with the California Fuel Cell Partnership. What you're looking at here is the Fuel Cell Partnership station map. So if you're a current driver, or if you're looking into purchasing a fuel cell electric vehicle, this map lists all the stations that are currently open, as well as stations that are in development in California. So we made a couple of slight changes to the map. Now it expands for the full screen. We also made the list hide in the back or on the side here. So if you're looking for all the list of stations, you can click on this button, List Stations, and it'll pop out with all of the stations. And you can click on the arrow to hide the list again. If you're wanting to filter it, so you're looking for just the stations that are opening up this quarter, you can also filter by unchecking these boxes. By default, it's going to show all the stations with the exception of the bus stations. So again, you can come through and you can uncheck all the boxes. And this will show just the stations that are expected to open in Q4, for instance. This list also shows, along with it, the current status of the station, so meaning if it's currently online or if it's offline. And so if you click on that name, again, it will take you to a more detailed information page with the current status, so whether it's online or if it's in a limited state or if it's offline completely. Near the bottom, we also have a phone number that you can contact if you're having any issues while at the site as well. The second tool that I want to address is our station operational status system. And so again, this is a great tool if you're a current customer. This tells you what the current status of the station is. It's in real time, and so as soon as the status changes, it will be reflective on the site within 15 minutes. A couple of changes to the site. We've added an information icon, so you'll see here on the Anaheim station, for instance. If there's any information that the station developers have provided to us, we will add that to this station here. So for instance, we know that for instance, the San Juan Capistrano station, that station has an information icon to alert customers of an upgrade that can be happening to improve the reliability of that station. We also know, for instance, the UC Irvine station. So this station gets heavy usage from buses between the hours of 10 p.m. and 2 a.m. So information such as this will be highlighted at the top of the page, and again, it will be alerted on a home page with this information icon. The other item that we've added is a new indicator, and what this means is that the station has just come online. It's a new station, and that will be sitting on the page for anywhere between 30 to 60 days, and then after that, it will be moved to a open station. So this is also separated in our public retail station as well as our other stations. So the public retail stations, these are stations that any fuel cell electric vehicle customer can pull up to and fill up at. You can also create an account on our SAW system, so that, and with this, it will allow you to sign up for notifications either through email or through text message. So once you've signed up, you can log in and then go to My Account. On this page, there's an edit or manage the subscriptions. And typically, this site will be viewed on a mobile phone, so it looks a little awkward on the desktop here. But you can definitely access it on your desktop at m.cscp.org, And again, that will be the same URL if you access it on your mobile device as well. You would put in your cell number if you want text messages, and then on here you can select which stations you want to receive text messages for or email notification. You can be notified for just H70 if you're only interested in the 10,000 psi pressure. You can be notified for online statuses, offline or limited. So what that means is if you check the online status, if the station is offline, once it moves into an online status, you'll get an email or text message saying that the station has changed status. So these stations, when a new station comes online, by default, it will not be checked. And so you'll have to come online, log into your account, and check this box to get the notification for that system or for that station. On that, if you also have a particular station that you visit often, you can sort the list of stations based on your preference. So if you're based in West Sacramento, for instance, you can pull that West Sacramento station all the way to the top. And by saving that, your home screen will now show the West Sacramento station at the very top of the list. We're currently working on adding a couple of new features to this interface that will be implemented in Q2, Q3 of 2017. One of those is adding geolocation capabilities, meaning that wherever you're driving, this list will change based on your location. We're also looking for additional feedback, and so if you have any additional feedback, feel free to contact me, and my contact information will be available at the end of this presentation as well.
And it's at the bottom of this page.
And it's also at the bottom of this page here as well. All right, with that, I'm going to shift this.
No, Ben, before you leave this, could you please go back to the station map? And we have a question about if there are directions like a Google map gives you. So could you maybe show that or talk about that?
Yes, so it's for the station map, we don't have directions. For the SAS site, you do. So for instance, on this map here, when you click on it, this is the detailed information here. But if you're driving around in a car, typically you're going to want to use the SAS site, which is again m.csp.org. And so let's say you're in the Bay Area and you want to go to South San Francisco, you will click on this page here and you'll click on View and Map. When you click on that, it's going to launch your either iPhone Google app system, or if you're on Android, again, whichever app takes you to your maps. And then from here, you'll be able to get directions to that station.
And Ben, we have other apps. There are other apps available that are using this data too. Could you briefly mention where else this pops up?
Sure, definitely. So for any of you on the call that are Mirai customers, you may be familiar with the Intune app, and this is the app that's being used for Toyota customers. So we're sending data to that dashboard, as well as there's a couple of other systems as well. If you're a Hyundai customer, you're in the website where you're going to get reimbursed. That website also is taking data from the SAS site as well.
And from Airlock and Honda?
We also have the Airlock app that launched last month, and so you'll be able to get to that. It's H2 Station Finder, and again, that's on iTunes. True Zero also launched their app earlier this week, and so again, you can find that on the iTunes store as well.
So lots of options of getting to the same information, but everybody's using the SAS information.
Yes. All right, and so with that, I'm going to pass it back to Joe.
Thanks, Ben. So just in summary, and I know there are probably a lot of questions out there, just wanted to reiterate that, as we mentioned, now we have coverage through most of the state now, from San Diego all the way through the Central Valley and up to the Lake Tahoe area. We now have over 1,000 fuel cell vehicles on the roadways in California, and Toyota has plans to introduce a lot more next year. And we also have Honda is introducing their Clarity, their new Clarity to the market as well. So we should see these numbers ramp up pretty significantly over the next year. We have learned a lot in terms of refining the process to get retail stations open. It's getting the time frame for getting stations is really improving quite a bit, and we've got some new station developers that are building stations as well this year in this round of funding, and we expect some new entrants into the market next year as well. And the commitment from the state is continuing. As you know, AB 8 was signed into law a couple of years ago, which secures funding for the $20 million a year for the next 10 years through 2023. So the state's commitment is unwavering right now, and we expect that to continue. And as we mentioned before, we are also looking at moving into the medium and heavy duty sectors as well. The partnership has released their action plan relative to that, so we'll have some more movement on medium and heavy duty vehicles next year as well. And with that, that concludes our presentation, and I'm sure there are a lot of questions out there that they have for us. Chris?
So thanks, Chair. We do have a few questions to bounce back and forth, and it always starts with, is there a station plan for X? But I'm going to start with the first one about, do you have an idea of when the Thousand Oaks station is going to be online?
At this point, it's just early next year, probably in first quarter of next year. That's our estimate right now.
Okay. And then the stations in
I'm sorry. Wait, I take that back. Probably closer to, my information is it's probably around Q2, second quarter. Sorry.
Bunch of questions poured in, and I kind of lost my place in here. Status of stations that might be planned for Bakersfield area, Temecula area. Any idea on that?
It's possible that there are some proposals in right now with the Energy Commission. I don't know for certain, but it's possible that they may be evaluating some proposals in those areas. We won't know until the Energy Commission releases their NOPA in the first quarter of next year.
Could you maybe go back to the chart that you had that showed the priority locations? So maybe talk about that. Does it mean that that's exactly where the Energy Commission plans to award the money, or?
Now, these were identified as core market areas based on input from stakeholders and ARB modeling. So these have been identified in the past as core markets, but the last solicitation, the GFO, they are scoring or ranking relative to market considerations for proposing stations not in these core market areas. So each one of those will be evaluated on their own merits, and it's possible that stations outside of these core markets will score high enough to rank for a possible station.
And while you're on this slide, you mentioned that CEC got quite a few proposals. Do you think, is there any plan that they might add more money to the $33 million?
It's possible, but until they make their decision, we won't know for sure.
So for those of you not familiar with the Energy Commission grant process or any grant process, once they get to the point of evaluating the applications, they go really dark on it. So there's just no communication until they have actually announced the award. And all we know is Q1, and it's always a surprise. They seem to just kind of like sneak it out, and you go, oh, look, they've announced the award. So we're all looking for that every day as well. So I do see a request for David. Yes, we're David, Mammoth, Sequoia, Yosemite. It's really awesome that we see so many places looking for stations, and we're excited that all of them will grow, and there may be opportunities other than CEC funding in the future as well. Dave, you got some great comments here, and I want to get to those at the end because I love that. So I have a couple of comments about, first I want to say to everybody who's asking, yes, we will post a copy of the presentation, and we'll also post the recording of the presentation on the website by tomorrow. And someone says get closer to the phone. I can do that. The stations, Joe, if you could go back to the couple of the pictures of the stations. And maybe talk about where those are located. Are they with gas stations, natural gas stations? Are we installing them in places where they have DC fast charging?
Yeah, the stations you see here, Playa del Rey, that's integrated into, I believe, a Shell station near LAX Airport, just on Lincoln Boulevard. The Woodland Hill station is integrated into an existing retail gasoline station, as is the Hollywood station. The Anaheim station is as well. It's a 76 station. And the Del Mar station is also, it's right by the 5, but it's integrated into an existing gasoline station.
And Joe, how about outside of California? What's going on outside of our state?
Right, right now, Toyota and Air Liquide have partnered to develop 12 stations in the Northeast. And my understanding is that they are scheduled to be coming online sometime in 2017. And I do not believe construction has started in any one of those areas, but H2USA or Toyota or Air Liquide would be able to provide some more information on that.
Okay. How about mobile fuelers? Do we have anything going on with mobile fuelers?
Yeah, there are some Air Products mobile fuelers that have been in operation for quite some time, and from time to time they are put into use. There was a solicitation and an award for a mobile fueler in the last PON, and so that's still in the design phase right now, but there is a mobile fueler in the works.
All right, I'm going to skip over to you for a question, Ben. You talked about the status on SOF. Can you explain what that status means? Does it mean that there's a problem with the hydrogen supply, or?
So we have 3 different statuses on SOF. Online means that it's fully operational, and that when you pull up there, you'll be able to get a full fill. A limited status, which is a yellow status, means that when you show up there, you'll still be able to fill up, but you're not going to be able to get that full fill. So you may get a 75% fill. So typically in Mariah, for instance, you're getting 330 miles on a full fill. But if it's in that yellow state, you may be getting 280 to 260 or somewhere lower range. And then the offline means that there's a couple of different reasons why a station may go into offline. So for instance, if they're doing maintenance, they'll take it offline, or if it's if there's an issue with the point-of-sale system, then they'll take it offline.
All right. Hopefully that answered that question. So I'm sorry, I'm reading through. There are a lot of questions all of a sudden, so I'm trying to read through. I might ask both Joe and Ben, what are the big lessons that we learned this year that could benefit other station builders or building medium and heavy duty stations? And I know there are lots of them, and I know that we're working on documenting them. But if you were to pick out 3, Joe, what would you say are the top 3 lessons learned?
One would definitely be start very early meeting with city officials, building, fire, and other officials on your plans. Get them educated and comfortable with what you're doing and how you're doing it. There's a lot of give and take back and forth with the city, depending on the location. Some cities are more engaged in terms of design, elements than others. Even though most of these stations are going into existing retail stations, it's always appreciated to start very, very early. Also, I would say you need to, some of this, I guess, some other elements to this or lessons learned is that engage the community as well. Some of these communities have very active community organizations and are curious and interested, they're very interested in what's going on with the station, how it works, and what it's going to mean for traffic patterns and things like that. So engaging the community is also key. And if some companies have the capability, to work directly with the community, you might have to, bring in some outside community service providers to help you along with that as well. But I think those are the two biggest, and those two issues right there, those lessons learned, really go a long way to helping us a smooth transition in terms of the development of the station.
Joe, there are also a lot of questions coming in about what are we doing with our neighboring states, Oregon, Nevada, New Mexico. Could you maybe talk about that briefly? It's a really big open-ended question. I know that's putting you on the spot.
Yeah, it is. At a staff level, at the partnership, we have been engaged with staff and personnel from some of the states like Washington State, Oregon. I don't think at the partnership we may have been talking to Nevada. I'm not sure. I know there are definitely the governor's office is in contact with these states as well through the 8-state ZEB MOU. So I think there are some conversations taking place there. And I do know there's interest in people, residents of Southern California interested in going to Las Vegas. So we do know about that. The Energy Commission knows about it. The car manufacturers know about it, and station developers. So we do anticipate at some point in the future expanding north and east from California.
So, and I do see some, there were quite a few questions about mobile refueling in here, and then also a reminder that it's called temporary fuelers, not mobile refuelers. And I don't remember why, but it is. And there was also a great comment from our friends in Australia saying that they have just launched a temporary fueler there, which would be a great way to get started with things in Australia. And we're really happy that you joined us today. And there was a question about San Francisco, a station in San Francisco, and I know that that is a priority for this round of funding. Joe, there's also questions about why no stations in downtown LA.
The Hollywood station is close to downtown LA, and it's a few miles away from downtown, so it's pretty easy to get to. Also, the Cal State LA station is about 6 miles from downtown LA. So that area is covered somewhat right now, but I'll bet you that there'll be more proposals coming forth in the next round or two.
So is it fair to say, too, that we found that in places that are really dense urban areas that finding a station with enough room to add hydrogen is a bit of a challenge?
It is, yeah. The footprint of these stations, it is a challenge in some of these more urban areas, but the station developers have gotten very creative, and they've actually, some of the retail stations where these hydrogen fueling dispensers are, some of them are relatively small, so they've done a really good job of integrating them into existing very densely urban retail locations right now. So.
There are also a couple questions about taxes and where there are changes in the GFO to the tax structure. And
so, yeah, I don't think taxes were addressed in the GFO. That's my understanding or my recollection. But in terms of selling hydrogen, I think there's a sales tax that has to be charged and is incorporated into the retail price of hydrogen right now. But it's my understanding that hydrogen is not taxed as a motor fuel currently.
Yeah, it has sales tax but no excise taxes on it.
Correct.
Another really specific question, Joe, do you know if the Lawndale station will be open before Torrance closes for its upgrade?
That's the plan. That's what everybody hopes. Yes, so that is the plan.
Okay. There's a question that asked if we have any financial performance on the existing stations. by the end of December, which could be December 31st, the Energy Commission is due to release its progress report, and I understand that they're going to have some information about financial performance in that progress report. So, so we don't have that information today. Joe, what's the do we have a current, or maybe Ben knows this, what's the average kilogram per fueling? Do we know that?
Joe?
My understanding is it's around just a little over 3 kilograms per fueling. Somewhere between 3 and 4 right now. That'll probably also come out in the December ABA report.
Well, you're a driver, Joe. Do you let your car run empty before you fill it up, or how long do you go?
Oh, I usually run it down. I usually fill up. My fill-ups are like 4 kilograms, so I run them pretty long.
All right, and so I'm going to pick on Dave Iselton here for a minute. I'm going to call him out in just a minute. He's one of the very first drivers of a Hyundai Tucson, and his lease is almost over, and Dave wrote in here that he is about to re-up his lease and go for another 3 years. Dave is one of our users who was driving the vehicle when there was like one station to use and it sometimes worked. And so he was actually our first comment on here he said, the world is a much better place today than it was a year ago. And so we're glad to hear that, and Dave says his average fill-up is 4 kilograms. Another question was about the federal tax credit for fuel cell vehicles that is expiring at the end of the year. We have not heard any information on that being renewed yet, but that's not unusual in an election year like this. We've seen these types of tax credits happen before, and it usually takes a new Congress to come in before they reinstate a tax credit. So it may be retroactive, but it may not be renewed. And we just don't know until there's till the new administration, the new Congress starts meeting. The California rebate for fuel cell vehicles is unchanged. It is $5,000, and it is not dependent on income. So for battery electric vehicles now there's an income requirement, and that's not true for fuel cell vehicles. So I wish I had more information about federal tax credits, but I'm sorry, we just don't. Let me cruise through here one more time. We also had some questions about how the federal government is going to be involved with fuel cells. Again, we just don't know. We are certainly planning for lots of if this happens, then we'll do that, and if that happens, we'll do that. So we're getting prepared for that, but no further information. We did have quite a few questions asking to clarify what the difference is between a temporary fueler and a mobile refueler, and we'll do that in our follow-up. I usually answer all of the questions again and shoot them out to everybody in a Word document. So we'll go into a little bit more detail on that, as well as how the locations work. I will give you all a link to the ARB's really great planning map, and it will help you understand how we're figuring out where stations go so that we can cover the state as quickly as possible. A question about the Nikola truck and the Nikola fueling plans. Joe, can you answer that one?
I know there was a press release, and they claimed all kinds of things, including building a network across the country. But that's really all I know, just that press release.
So
they just announced their truck. Go ahead.
Nico from our office has met the Nikola people, and it's something we'll be following up on next year too. Some questions about adding to the network in the Sacramento area, Joe.
Yeah, Sacramento is, they're on the list for building out some more stations. So I'm sure There were a number of proposals relative to that, so we won't know for sure until the CEC releases their NOPA.
Okay, I think that, I skipped over one question. One of our folks asked the 1,000 vehicle number that you gave for sales. Is that just in California or is that nationwide?
California is the only place right now that has retail stations, so that's mostly California.
So it kind of is a nationwide number that just happens to be all in California. So we're looking forward to that changing. And then I'm going to hit this last question, Joe, because they are, a lot of them are really specific, and I want to make sure that I answer you very specifically. They're about high step and about the medium and heavy duty action plan and what are we doing on truck planning, and they're just a little more involved than we can do on a webinar. The last one is if you could please just touch upon the Northeast stations and what you know would be going on in the Northeast.
Yeah, so the H2USA has put together, they've mapped out work together. A lot of the same stakeholders that are involved in California are looking at the Northeast and the travel corridors there. And right now, the first build-out in the Northeast is really centered on the New York to Boston corridor. So there are going to be a number of stations that are built in and around the New York metro area. So that includes New York, New Jersey, Connecticut. It's my understanding there's going to be a station as well in Hartford that would kind of be in, midway between New York and Boston. And then there are going to be a number of stations that are built in the Boston metro region as well. And that includes, I know that's Massachusetts, it may include Rhode Island in there as well. So the number of states are targeted right now to get stations built in the Northeast.
Right. There are still like I said, still quite a few questions coming in, and a lot of detailed questions that I'll be following up on. And I might ask Ben or Joe, any closing comments?
We're making really good progress, and we're looking forward to having more vehicles and more stations on the road in 2017.
And again, if you have any feedback at all on any of the tools that we are providing, please let me know, and that we can. We definitely want to make sure that this is a pleasant experience for you.
All right. Thank you, everybody.